Today I'm happy to speak with Katie Belfi, and Katie is going to talk to us about resilience. Welcome, Katie.
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So, resilience, that's some kind of word. But before we get into that, can you introduce yourself and tell us who you are?
Absolutely. So, I am a former attorney for FEMA, for the Federal Emergency Management Agency. That's where I in emergency management. But working Hurricane Sandy, I realized that I liked my client's job better than my job because they were the ones out there delivering help and actually delivering the programs. And I was the lawyer that was sitting behind the desk telling them what was legal and what wasn't. So,
Mm-hmm.
that really it launched my change over to becoming an emergency manager myself. And after many stops along the way on my career path, I ultimately went out on my own and became an emergency management consultant, teaching companies, corporations, colleges how to develop a preparedness program, how to respond to emergencies, and how to recover from them.
Mm-hmm.
But in working with big corporations, what became very apparent very fast was if you don't have resilient individuals working for you, your institution can never become resilient. So I realized I needed to pivot my approach a little bit. And it was really during the winter storm in February in Texas, where I live, that it really hit home that people are tremendously unprepared in general. And I just felt very called to share what I know and try offering it in a different way than, FEMA has tried before and see if we can get people more engaged with preparedness.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I was in New York City during Sandy, so
Oh
I
boy.
experienced that. Oh yeah, I experienced that. And there's
Yep.
actually still some, residual, you know, effect of that
Hmm.
storm. But when you talk about disaster and recovering from disaster, especially the disaster of the last 2 years, then resilience become very important. But what is resilience? What is it?
So it's such a big question, Jennifer. And I think, it's become such a buzzword. And I think if you ask 10 people, you're going to get 10 different answers. And so for me, my definition of resilience that's informed by both psychology and emergency management, resilience is our capacity to rebound from an impact, from a challenge, from adversity, but not to a place where we were before that impact, to a place where we're actually better situated than we were before because of what we've learned from that impact.
Okay. All right. So that's good. So let's turn to the solar mom
Hmm.
who we've experienced a lot of trauma and not unlike anyone else, but it's specific to us in the sense that we alone are raising children and we have sometimes not learned how to learn from those experiences
Hmm.
we've gone through. So tell us how a solo mom one can benefit from learning how to embrace being resilient.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, and I think so. I'm gonna start with the first part of your question about learning how to learn because I think that's such a brilliant way of putting it. And I think especially for people like solo moms or anybody with sort of an over full plate, the idea of taking time to learn something is in itself a challenge, right? Because
Right,
it's like I don't have time to learn something. I just have to know how to do it.
right.
And this is where the mindfulness piece of the work that I do comes in. And it's really giving yourself that space and that grace to reflect on your opportunity, on your experience, not with judgment, but with a type of introspection that you can say to yourself, okay, what worked? Like, what did I do during this response, during this disaster that went really well for myself and my kids? And what do I need to work on? And I think it's really that first step, I think is really important, especially for people that are carrying so much responsibility, is
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging the things that you got down and sort of giving yourself a moment of appreciation and gratitude. Because I think so often we run through life accomplishing all of these things without ever doing that. And I think
Celebrate the wins, huh?
that's exactly right. And I think it goes a very long way towards helping us cultivate resilience because it's helping us refill that tank a little bit.
Yes, yes.
And so, start by celebrating the wins. And then when it comes to reflecting on what didn't work, get really specific about it. Don't just say to yourself, oh my God, that was such a disaster. Everything was terrible. Nothing worked. Really force yourself to look at the specifics. Okay, so you know what? We didn't have enough of X, or that plan that I had for backup childcare when I had to go back to work wasn't great. I need to reassess that. And you know what? I need a backup to my backup. And these are all things that, if we allow them to, can be crushing, that
Yes,
list of to dos. And
yes.
so I encourage people, and this is pulling from the sort of emergency management industry. We conduct after actions after every disaster to do just this.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you create that list of all the things I want to address that I could have done better, you start with prioritizing. And this is where developing a sense of what are the things that will most greatly impact my ability to do what I need to do and live the life that I want to live. And that's how we get to our priorities about what we're addressing first.
Right, right. Yes, that's very important because a lot of times we spend our time wallowing and, finding reasons why we can't move forward. And so I appreciate you coming and talking about this topic because it's not addressed in an area where we specifically need it right now.
Yeah.
All right, so changing tactic. What is Katie grateful for today?
Well, it's such a nice day to answer that question because it's actually my 5-year anniversary with my husband. And
Oh,
so that's an easy one today. I am very grateful for him because he's been a major player in allowing me to become the person that I am today and explore this passion and find a way to help people in a way that nobody else is doing right now. And
right.
he's really been a backstop for me and a cheerleader to say, this is unknown, but go for it."
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, happy anniversary
Thank you very
and
much.
congratulations because you seem happy.
Oh,
And that's
thank you.
always something to celebrate when a couple is happy, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Yes.
celebrating the wins. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we've all had negative relationships, so we certainly have to celebrate the positive ones.
Amen. That's awesome. All right. Next up on my list is, do you practice self-care and what does that look like for you?
Absolutely. And I have said before, and this is one of my favorite taglines, that to prepare is self-care. I came around to this because while I was becoming an emergency manager, I've always had side gigs my whole life. I've just been like, a hustler my whole life. I'm sure you can relate to this, starting your own podcast.
Absolutely.
And so while I was going to law school, becoming a lawyer, becoming an emergency manager, I was building a wellness business on the side. And I became a yoga instructor, a meditation instructor, a holistic health coach, a personal trainer. I got all the certifications.
Wow, you sound like a Jamaican. I'm sorry.
I'm going to take that as a compliment,
Oh
Jennifer.
yeah, we're allowed to laugh at ourselves, and that's one of them. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, for me, all of these other outlets, that was self-care for me, was exploring these other methods to balance out everything that was happening in my very stressful corporate life.
Yes.
And what it came down to for me was that my ultimate outlet was helping people. And that was how I regenerated and how I restored myself, was being of service to others. And
Mm,
that's always been my number one self-care. But it's also those practices that I saw offer tremendous benefit to myself, like meditation, like yoga, like strength training, that I felt so compelled to share with others because they play such a profound role in building our overall resilience.
yeah.
It's not just about being prepared for disasters. You've got physical resilience, mental resilience, emotional resilience. All of these things come into play when we're talking about truly being prepared for anything.
Yes.
So 100% self-care is at the top of my list. And as an entrepreneur, it's very easy to let those sort of practices slip.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's been a lifetime of constantly shifting and allowing myself the time and the space to figure out the balance. You
Yes.
know, I'm never going to be somebody who wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning to meditate. I'm not. I've been meditating since I was 18 years old. It has never once happened at 5 a.m. And I think it's finding a way to allow those practices to fit into your life without causing more stress,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I think that, like, there's so much pressure that comes along with the self-care message for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh great, now this is just another should on my list.
Right. Yes.
So I think that that's really that's my goal right now, and sort of keeping it in that place of balance, and allowing it to be an add and
Right.
not something that's detracting from my bliss.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I always
Sure.
like to ask this question because I know different people practice in different ways.
Mhm.
And I really like the incremental and the layering, where you do it little by little
Mhm.
and you layer it one on top of the other. I started by just walking
Mhm.
and walking when it was sunny and walking through the park and
Yep.
listening to the birds sing,
Yep.
and praying and singing and laughing. That's how self-care started for me,
That's it.
So yeah, thank you.
And I mean, you make such a beautiful point, Jennifer, that what is self-care for you is so unique.
Yeah, yes.
You don't need to spend a fortune on a retreat or buy a special candle. Just getting yourself outside, breathing the fresh air and appreciating
Mhm.
what's happening around you can be so medicinal.
Mhm. Mhm. And I've done both. I've gone on week-long retreat,
Yeah,
yoga, spa retreat. So it's whatever works for you. It's just like a diet. No
that's
one size
right.
fits all, right? Yeah.
Oh yes.
Absolutely. All right. So, can you give me one or two points, a bit of advice for the solo mom going
Hmm.
through something hard right now or dealing with the effect of something that had happened, whether it's a flood or a divorce or a child getting out of hand?
Hmm. I mean, I think step one is not isolating yourself to the extent that you can. Really find someone that you can talk to that can hear you in a supportive way, and whatever that means for you. I like to start my conversations with friends when I know that they're sort of venting about something. Before I respond, I like to ask them, "Are you looking for counsel or comfort?" Because my go-to, I'm a fixer.
Mm-hmm.
I want
Mm-hmm.
to solve everybody's problems. So before I jump into, well, what if you do this? I've learned to give people the moment to say, actually, I just want to vent. I just need an ear
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And watching what that can do for people has really taught me so much about the
Mm-hmm.
importance of leaning on people when we're in that place.
Yes.
And I think during the pandemic, this has become especially hard. We've all isolated in our own ways. And
Mm-hmm.
so starting to reconnect and forge those relationships again that we can depend on. I think
Yes.
that's, first and foremost. And then, I think you gave me a bunch of great examples, and I think that what they all come down to are challenges, adversities, obstacles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think the best thing that we can do for ourselves in that moment is acknowledge the difficulty that we're facing and not add to the stress of it by being hard on ourselves about what we are or not able to do immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, especially for women, that's a really hard one.
Mm-hmm. Give yourself grace.
That's it.
Yeah. All right. I appreciate you coming, Katie, and talking to me. How can we get in touch with you?
Absolutely. My everything lives on my website, www.katiebelfi.com. I've got tons of resources up there. I've been running the Ready for Real challenge on Instagram. That's 30 days of readiness and resilience content,
Hmm.
and all of it lives on my website as well. So if you
Okay.
sign up for the challenge, you get access to that and download workbooks and follow along and start building your foundation of resilience.
Okay. All right. So, Katie Belfi, thank you for coming and talking to me today about being resilient. And Katie can help you if you're struggling with bouncing back from, situations in your life. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Have a great day.
Thank you, you too.